Hey everyone, Jeb from A Better Track here. Today we're going to be working on cover letters, the second half of your resume basically. A cover letter, unlike your resume, is going to be more in detail and have more personality as to what your skills are and what your experiences are. You're going to make this a form that's going to be far more who you are through writing and storytelling basically. It should be a guided tour for the reader as to what your skills are, as opposed to just a very factual, one sentence, quick description like your resume was. So your cover letter should be something that's directed directly to the person that's going to be hiring you. So if you're going into the restaurant business, everything you talk about in your cover letter is going to dictate directly towards the restaurant industry. You're not going to talk about things that you did when you were over working at Safeway, or that when you were working in the landscaping business. It doesn't really matter in this, much like it didn't matter in your resume. In here, what you want to start off with is a memorable intro. So something that's going to grab a person's attention. Lots and lots of businesses ask for cover letters. And there are a lot of templates out there for you to make a cover letter, and a lot of programs out there that you can find on the internet that will basically write the cover letter for you. I hate to break it to you now, but everybody is going to use those same things. And in a cover letter, you want to be different. You want it to be unique. You want it to be a little slice of you. So to have a memorable intro, you want something that is going to grab the reader's attention and say, whoa, okay, they put some thought into this. Now that doesn't mean you need to be the world's greatest writer. It just means you need to be different from what everybody else said, what every other template said to do. After your memorable intro, that's when you're going to go into into specific organized examples of what you do, your relevant work, or your skills. Now, in that, what you would talk about is any work experience that you have that pertains to this actual job that you're applying for. And instead of listing it like we did in the resume beforehand, we really want to tell a story of a specific time that something happened, a problem that we had, how we solved that problem, or just generally how we got along at that specific business and how you would get along at this new business that you're applying at. If you don't have any relevant work experience, you can always talk about skills that you have. Now, we listed your skills in the resume, so this is a great tool to use when you're trying to write your cover letter, to just go back to that resume and kind of pull from some of the skills that you have in there. But again, in there, we listed what you did. We don't want to list what you did in this. Now we want to have a full story pertaining to everything that you did. So if I say that I'm a hard worker, I don't want to just say I'm a hard worker. I want to say I'm a hard worker, and here's why I'm a hard worker. Here's things that I've done. I've worked at my grandpa's ranch. I've painted houses for my dad. I've done things around the house and got them done quickly. You want to give very detailed examples. The other thing that you want to do is why. Why should we hire you here? Why are you the best person to be hired? This is all going to be in the middle section of your cover letter. Those three topics are going to be intermixed in there as much as you possibly can. Like I said, if you don't have a work experience, that's okay. We'll talk about skills. But you should always have a why. And you should always have skills. There's always going to be some reason that you're going to be the best person for this job, and you've got to tell people what that reason is. What we end with is a concise conclusion and a call to action. So when we end this thing, we don't want to just end on the story of why we should be the person to work here. You want to thank the person for reading through what you've done. And in the end, you also want to say something to the effect of, I would love to speak with you about this in person. A call to action is just something that is going to spur the person that's reading this to actually go through the motions of bringing you in to talk to you about what it is that you put on the paper. Now, there are some key things about a cover letter that you should and shouldn't do. What you should do is you should go over and you should read this thing again and again to check for spelling and grammatical errors. This is going to shine very brightly if you haven't done this. Don't just spell check because you put it through your Word document. Go through it and read it and have somebody else read it to make sure that it actually makes sense. The other thing that you're going to want to do is make sure, like I said again, that it has personality in it. Make sure your personality comes out in it, so that when I'm looking at it, I'm not only seeing what skills you have, but what kind of person you are. If you're funny, be slightly funny in this. Don't go overboard. Don't make it a giant joke, but throw some of that into it. If you're very analytical, throw some of your analytical into it. If you get along well with customers, make sure that you have a lot of banter in there that makes people understand that you're a very friendly person. The other thing you should do in a cover letter is make sure that it's very well organized. So sitting down and just writing a cover letter is probably not going to turn out very well unless you're a very organized thinker and are able to do that with everything that you do. Normally what a lot of people should do is really write out an outline ahead of time. Just put some thoughts down on a piece of paper that kind of organize what it is that you want to say, and so that it makes it easier when it comes down to actually writing the paper. The other thing you want is you want to make sure that this thing's very thorough. You don't want to have just a very short 3-paragraph, barely takes up half the page cover letter. The other thing you don't want is you don't want this thing to rattle on for 2 pages either. So keep it to a concise 1 page, but make sure that it hits that 1 page so that it's got a lot of information in it and that you've actually told a story. Now in the telling a story part, what you don't want to do is rush through that story. It's not, I know how to work hard and I've worked real hard for my grandpa digging ditches in the summer. That doesn't tell me anything. What you want to do is you want to say that I'm a hard worker. I've proven on many occasions working with my grandpa in the summer on his ranch, doing very hard tasks of digging ditches, cutting down trees, fixing tractors, and my grandpa's come to rely on me as the person that's going to get things done during the day because he's getting a little up there in age and it's harder and harder for him to keep up with everything on the ranch. It's very important to me that my grandpa keeps his ranch in good working condition because it's very important to him, and I want to make sure that my grandpa's happy. Something like that tells a story. It tells me why you want to do it, why it's important to you, and a little more detail about what it is that you're doing. It also takes up more room, so you're going to get closer to that 1 page that you want to get to. Things that you don't want to do in a cover letter, you don't want to research it on the internet and see all the fancy words everybody uses, because everybody's going to research it on the internet and try and use those exact same fancy words. Like I said, you want to be you in a cover letter. So it's got to make sense, it's got to be professional, but it shouldn't read like a robot wrote it. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to make this thing too generalized. What you should be doing is you should be finding out who the owner is or who the hiring manager is and writing this letter directly to that person. So find out that Jan is the hiring manager and address this letter originally to Jan. Another thing that you don't want to do on a cover letter is rush through it. This cover letter is a representation of who you are as a worker and as a person. And if you rush through it, to me that says you're probably going to rush through work. Try to take your time on this, make sure that it looks good for everybody, and it makes sense to everybody. It's going to be the biggest foot forward that you can put when applying for a job. And it is one of the more critical things because people are going to see more into you and be able to judge you on your attention to detail and how much thought you've put into this thing. You don't want to take any chances when applying for a job. The goal is to get in the door and get an interview so that people know who you are and that you can crush the interview. You can't do that if you've taken too quickly to work on your cover letter and it's just not up to par. So what we'd like you to do right now is start working on an outline for your cover letter. Start off with your memorable intro. Try to come up with some way to grab my attention as I'm reading your cover letter. Just outline it for now. Doesn't necessarily need to be written out. Now move on to your specific examples of work experiences, skills, and then why it is you want to work in this industry. We're not asking you to write to a specific job right now, but just to a generalized industry as to what you're working there and why you want to do that. Again, you don't need to write this all out. We just would like it outlined so that when it comes time to actually write this, we have organized thoughts and we can move forward with that. Also come up with a concise conclusion and a call to action. If you get all these things done, when we get to actually work with you and talk with you, this process will go a lot faster and we can type this thing up and have a great cover letter that you're going to be proud of and that is going to get you that job. If you have any questions, feel free, as always, to ask Matt or I, and we'll talk to you soon so we can work through this. Thank you and have a good day.